You back your rig down the ramp on a Saturday morning, the water is calm, the coffee is still warm, and you have no idea that the drive home is about to cost you a wheel bearing, a fender, or worse. I know that feeling because I lived it. For years, I trailered my boat exactly the way my neighbor did, the way the guy at the dealership did, the way everybody at the ramp seemed to do. And it turns out most of what I was doing was slowly wrecking my trailer from the inside out. Here is the claim I did not believe at first. Nearly every trailer that dies young does not die from one big crash. It dies from 15 small, ordinary habits that experts have been quietly warning against for decades. I thought that was nonsense. Then I lost a hub on the interstate near a town called Baxter, smoke pouring off the axle, and I started reading everything I could find. By the end of this, I am going to hand you something buried in a 1965 patent and a set of United States Coast Guard trailering notes that changed how I do every single trip. And I promise you this applies whether you tow a 14-foot aluminum John boat or a 24-foot cruiser. So let me start with the one that got me first, because it is the one almost nobody sees coming. Here is the mistake that cost me that hub near Baxter. I backed my hot trailer straight into cold lake water. It sounds harmless. You just launched, the wheels have been rolling for an hour, and you dunk them to float the boat off. I did it 1,000 times without a thought. But here is what is actually happening inside that wheel. After highway miles, your bearings and the grease around them can climb past 200 degrees. The metal hub expands. The air trapped inside the hub cavity expands too. Then you plunge it into water that might be 60 degrees or colder. That sudden cooling does something sneaky. The air inside contracts fast, and it creates a small vacuum. That vacuum literally sucks water past the rear grease seal and into the bearing chamber. You cannot see it. You drive home fine. But now there is water sitting in your grease, and water plus steel plus heat equals rust and pitting on the bearing races. The failure does not happen that day. It happens 3 trips later, on the freeway, at 55 miles an hour, exactly where it is most dangerous. That is what happened to me. I smelled it before I saw it, that hot metal stink, and by the time I pulled over, the whole hub was blue. Now here is the part that made me feel foolish. A man named Stephen Kaufman patented a solution to this exact problem back in 1965. He called it the bearing buddy, a spring-loaded cap that keeps the hub under slight positive pressure so that vacuum never forms and water can never get sucked in. It has been sold at every marine store for over 50 years. I owned a set. They were sitting in my garage drawer unopened because I thought they were a gimmick. So the fix is simple, and you can do it this week. Give your wheels time to cool before you launch. 10 or 15 minutes off the highway is enough. And install those spring-loaded bearing protectors so the inside stays pressurized. That one habit alone probably saves more trailers than any other single thing I do now. But cooling the hubs only matters if there is good grease in there to protect in the first place. And that leads me straight into the mistake that quietly kills more bearings than water ever will. I believed that packing grease into a hub once a year was plenty. I was wrong, and the way I was wrong surprised me. For most of my life, I treated wheel bearings like a set-it-and-forget-it part. Grease them at the start of the season, forget about them, go boating. That is exactly the mindset that leaves people stranded on the shoulder. Because trailer bearings live the hardest life of any bearing on any vehicle you own. Think about it. Your car bearings stay dry and warm their whole life. Your trailer bearings get baked on the highway, dunked in water, left to sit for weeks between trips, and then asked to spin at highway speed, carrying thousands of pounds. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration has pointed for years to wheel and tire failures as one of the leading causes of trailer breakdowns on American roads, and bearings sit right at the center of that. Here is what I did not understand about grease. Not all grease is the same, and the wrong kind actually makes things worse. Regular automotive grease can wash out or emulsify when it mixes with water. What you want is a marine-grade, water-resistant grease, the kind rated for wet conditions. When I switched, I could not believe the difference in how the grease looked after a season. The old stuff came out gray and milky, which is grease that has already been contaminated with water. The marine grease came out, still looking like grease. So here is the practical rule I follow now. I check my bearings twice a season, not once. I feel the hubs after every stop on a long drive, just resting my hand near them. A hub that is warm is normal. A hub that is too hot to keep your hand on is screaming at you. And I repack with real marine grease at least once a year, more if I tow a lot of miles. There is a number that stuck with me. A full bearing repack costs almost nothing in parts, maybe $15 or $20 in grease and seals. A roadside failure that scorches your spindle can turn into a $400 axle repair, plus a towing bill, plus a ruined day. That math finally got through my thick skull. But I need to be honest with you about something, because this next mistake is the one I defended the longest. I argued with a mechanic about it, and he was right and I was wrong. For years I thought tire pressure on a trailer was about the same as a car. Keep it somewhere in the ballpark, top it off when it looks low. That thinking ruined 2 tires before I understood what trailer tires actually need. Here is what nobody told me. Trailer tires, the real ones marked with the letters ST for special trailer, are built completely differently from car tires. They have stiffer sidewalls because their whole job is to resist sway and carry vertical load, not to give you a smooth, grippy ride. And because of that, they are extremely sensitive to being run underinflated. A car tire that is a little soft just wears a bit faster. A trailer tire that is run soft builds up heat inside the sidewall, and that heat is what destroys it. The rubber literally starts to come apart from the inside. That is why you see so many shredded trailer tires along the highway. Most of those did not run over anything. They overheated because they were low on air, and the driver never knew. The fix stunned me with how simple it was. Trailer tires are meant to be run at the maximum pressure stamped on the sidewall, cold, before you drive. Not the pressure you guess. Not the pressure that looks right, the number molded right into the rubber. On many trailer tires, that is 50, 60, even 65 pounds. I had been running mine at 40 because that felt like enough. It was not. And here's the second thing that shocked me. Trailer tires age out before they wear out. The rubber degrades from sunlight, ozone, and just plain time, even if the tread looks brand new. Tire engineers and marine associations generally warn that a trailer tire past 5 or 6 years old is living on borrowed time no matter how good it looks. I had a set with beautiful tread that were 9 years old. They looked perfect. They were a blowout waiting to happen. So this week, go read the sidewall of your trailer tires, find the pressure number, and set them cold to that number. Then find the date code, those 4 digits at the end of the DOT stamp that tell you the week and year they were made. If they are older than about 6 years, start planning to replace them, tread or no tread. Therefore, once I had the tires and bearings sorted, I thought I had the dangerous stuff handled. That is exactly when I learned the mistake that causes the terrifying white-knuckle problem every tow driver fears the most. The first time my trailer started swaying behind me at highway speed, I thought I was going to die. And the cause was not the wind. It was where I put the cooler. Trailer sway is that horrifying moment when the trailer starts fishtailing left and right behind you, and each swing gets a little wider, and you feel the whole thing trying to take control of the truck. People panic and hit the brakes, which is often the worst thing you can do. I did not understand any of the physics until it happened to me on a windy stretch of interstate with a loaded boat. Here is the thing that surprised me most. Sway is almost always a weight distribution problem, and the number that governs it is called tongue weight. Tongue weight is simply how much of the trailer's total weight is pressing down on the hitch ball. And there is a rule that has been in towing guides for decades. Your tongue weight should be somewhere between 10 and 15% of the total loaded weight of the trailer. Too little tongue weight, and the trailer wants to wag its tail. That is the sway. Too much, and you overload the rear of your truck and lighten the front, which ruins your steering and braking. The magic zone is that 10 to 15%. Now here is where I was wrecking mine without knowing it. Every time I loaded gear into the boat, I would toss the heavy cooler, the anchor, the batteries, all the way to the back near the transom. That pushed weight behind the trailer's axle, which reduced my tongue weight and set me up for sway. Simply moving that heavy cooler forward, ahead of the axle, closer to the bow, transformed how the trailer rode. It went from nervous and twitchy to rock solid. I want to give you a way to actually check this instead of guessing, because that matters. You can measure tongue weight at home with an ordinary bathroom scale and a couple of lengths of pipe and board using a simple lever setup, or you can buy a dedicated tongue weight scale. But even without any of that, the rule of thumb saved me. Load the heavy stuff forward, over or ahead of the axle. Never pile weight behind the rear of the trailer. And make sure your boat is sitting all the way forward against the bow stop, not slid back an inch. And that brings up something I completely missed for years. A small piece of hardware doing a big job. The bow stop and the winch strap are not the thing that holds your boat on the trailer for the drive. I genuinely believed they were. That belief is dangerous, and I will get to why in a moment. But first I need to tell you about the mistake that is so common it happens at nearly every boat ramp in America, every single weekend, and it slowly bends trailers out of shape. I used to floor the engine and gun the boat up onto the trailer. Everybody at my ramp did it. It looked fast and it looked skilled. It was neither. It was wrecking the trailer. This is called power loading, using the boat's own motor to drive it up onto the bunks and against the bow stop. It feels efficient. It is quick, and it does two kinds of damage that you do not see until it is too late. The first kind of damage is to the ramp and the trailer's footing, but the second kind is to your trailer itself. When you gun the throttle to climb the trailer, the prop wash blasts backward and down. On a hard climb, that thrust can shove your boat into the bow stop with real force, and over time that repeated hammering stresses the winch post, the frame welds, and the bunks. It also digs a deep hole in the bottom of the ramp right where your trailer wheels sit, so the whole trailer ends up parked at a steep, unnatural angle that twists the frame every time. Many states and lake authorities have actually banned power loading for exactly these reasons, posting signs at the ramp, because the eroded holes it creates have damaged public boat ramps across the country. I did not even notice those signs until I started paying attention. The old way, the boring way, is the right way. You float the boat onto the trailer with the trailer backed in just deep enough, you hook the winch strap, and you crank it the last little bit by hand until it seats gently against the bow stop. It takes maybe 60 extra seconds. Those 60 seconds protect your frame, your bunks, and the ramp everyone else has to use. Therefore, once the boat is on the trailer nice and gentle, you would think the hard part is over. But this is exactly the moment the most expensive mistake of all sneaks in, and it happens in the parking lot, not on the water. I once drove away from a ramp with my boat resting on the trailer but not actually secured to it, held on by nothing but the winch strap. I found out the hard way what happens next. Here is the belief I had, and I bet you have it too. I thought the winch strap up front was holding my boat on the trailer. It is not. The winch strap is there to pull the boat up and keep it from sliding backward while you are at rest. It is not designed to hold your 2, 3, 4,000 pound boat in place when you hit a bump at highway speed. When you go over a big bump or slam on the brakes, the boat wants to keep moving. It can lurch forward and up, and a winch strap alone will not stop that. What stops it is a separate transom tie-down at the back, running from the trailer frame to the stern of the boat, pulling it down and back onto the bunks. Combined with a bow safety chain up front in addition to the winch strap, that is what actually keeps the boat married to the trailer. I learned this when I hit a pothole on a back road and heard a bang that I felt in my chest. The boat had jumped on the bunks. Nothing came off, but it scared me straight. If that had been a hard stop at highway speed, my boat could have slid forward into the back of my truck, or worse. So here is the rule: I never brake now. Bow gets two things: the winch strap and a separate safety chain or strap. Picture yourself back at that ramp right now, checking your own bow, wondering if you have 2 points of attachment or just one lonely strap holding thousands of pounds of boat. That is exactly the gap a book called First Principles closes for good. Along with its companion guides Deep Leverage and the Full System, 3 field guides built for guys who would rather understand their trailer than pay someone to shrug at it. Inside, you get the coin-tap survey trick for spotting a rotten hull in under 2 minutes, the plain checklist for packing your own hub so it never strands you on the highway, and a season-by-season maintenance calendar so nothing rots or rusts while you are not looking. Here is something you can test tonight for free, no book required. Go out to your driveway, put your hand near a cooled hub, and check whether your winch strap is doing double duty as your only bow attachment, because if it is, you already found your first fix. The fastest way to get the books is to scan the QR code right there on your screen, or go to the link in the description or the pinned comment. Winter storage season is coming for every one of us, no matter where you live, and that is exactly when a solid maintenance calendar earns its keep. Stern gets 2 transom tie-downs, 1 on each side, cinched down snug, and that is where I want to pick back up right now. Stern gets 2 transom tie-downs, 1 on each side, cinched down snug. That is 4 points of attachment, not 1. The straps cost maybe $15 to $20 a pair. A boat sliding off a trailer at speed is a catastrophe that insurance headaches are made of. But even a perfectly strapped boat can wreck the trailer under it if you get the next thing wrong, and this one is about metal you cannot even see. Now, I know some of you are thinking this all sounds like it is for people with big fancy boats and long highway trips, and that none of it applies to your little aluminum boat and your short drive to the local lake. I made this next part especially for you, because this is the mistake that hits small trailers and short trips the hardest, and it is the cheapest one to fix. Rust and corrosion do not care how big your boat is or how far you drive. They care about salt, water, and time, and they work on a 14-foot John boat trailer exactly like they work on a yacht trailer. And the number one place they attack is a part you probably never rinse: your trailer brakes, your springs, and the inside of your frame. Here is what I finally understood. When you back your trailer into the water, especially salt or brackish water, that water gets everywhere, into the brake calipers or drums, into the leaf spring layers, inside the hollow frame tubes through tiny holes. And when you drive home and park it, that water sits in there and eats the metal from the inside out. On a lot of trailers, the frame rots from the inside while the outside still looks painted and fine until the day it cracks. The fix costs you nothing but a garden hose and about 5 minutes. Every single time you get home, before you put the trailer away, rinse it. Rinse the whole thing with fresh water, but pay special attention to the wheels, the brakes behind the wheels, the springs, and the underside of the frame. If you towed in salt water, this is not optional. Salt left on trailer steel is like leaving acid on it. There is an old trick I picked up that I love. Many trailer frames have small drain holes or open ends. After rinsing, park with the tongue jacked up high for a while so any water trapped inside the frame tubes drains out the back instead of pooling and sitting. That simple angle, letting gravity empty the frame, adds years to the steel. I want to give you a real number here. Marine associations have long noted that corrosion is one of the top reasons trailers are retired early, and a galvanized or well-rinsed trailer can outlast a neglected one by many years. I have seen neglected trailers rust through in 5 or 6 years near the coast, and I have seen rinsed, cared-for trailers going strong past 20. The only difference was a garden hose and a couple of minutes of habit. And speaking of habits at the ramp, there is one small metal part that people torque wrong constantly, and it either falls off or gets destroyed. So let me tell you about your lug nuts, because I was doing this one wrong too. I used to tighten my trailer lug nuts once and never think about them again. On a trailer, that is a recipe for a wheel coming off, and I mean that literally. Here is why trailers are different from your truck. Trailer wheels, especially on smaller trailers, tend to be steel or aluminum wheels on hubs that heat up, cool down, and get dunked in water constantly. That heating and cooling cycle, plus the pounding a trailer takes, can cause lug nuts to loosen over time in a way that just does not happen as much on your daily driver. And a lot of trailer owners never recheck them after the first install. The rule that every trailer manufacturer prints and almost nobody follows is this: after you mount or remount a wheel, you drive a short distance, somewhere between 10 and 50 miles, and then you stop and retorque the lug nuts to the specified value. They settle in during those first miles, and if you never go back and recheck, they can back off. There is also a right way to tighten them. You tighten in a crisscross star pattern, not around in a circle, so the wheel seats evenly against the hub, and you tighten to the actual torque number in your trailer manual, not just as hard as your arm can pull. Over-tightening can stretch and snap the studs. Under-tightening lets them loosen. A cheap torque wrench, maybe $30, takes all the guessing out of it. I keep a small torque wrench in my truck now. It sounds obsessive. But I have watched a wheel and tire go bounding across 3 lanes of highway off somebody else's trailer, and I never want that to be me or the family in the car next to me. Therefore, with the wheels handled, let me hit a cluster of quick ones that each seem tiny, but that experts flag again and again, because any one of them can leave you stranded or start a fire. The first time my trailer lights went dark on a night drive home, I discovered a mistake I had been making at the ramp for years without a clue. Trailer lights and water do not mix, and the way most people wire and dunk their lights guarantees failure. When you back a trailer into the water with the lights on, or even warm, the same thing happens as with the bearings. Hot bulbs and hot sockets get dunked in cold water, they contract, and they suck moisture right into the housing and the wiring. Then the lights corrode, the grounds fail, and one night your trailer goes dark behind you. The fix that changed everything for me was switching to sealed LED trailer lights, which handle immersion far better, and being careful to unplug the trailer connector before backing into the water when I can. Some folks disconnect the lights entirely before launching. And the single most common cause of trailer light failure is not the bulbs at all, it is a bad ground. Running a clean, dedicated ground wire to each light instead of relying on the trailer frame, which rusts, solves most lighting nightmares before they start. But lights are the small stuff. Here is a bigger one that people forget in the parking lot. Retracting the tongue jack and checking the coupler is actually latched. I have watched people drive off with the jack still down, dragging it and grinding it to junk. And far more dangerous, I have seen couplers that looked closed but were never latched over the ball, held on only by the safety chains, one bump away from disaster. So before every single tow, I do the same walk around. Coupler latched and locked over the ball. Safety chains crossed underneath in an X. So if the coupler ever lets go, the tongue drops into the cradle of the chains instead of into the pavement. Jack fully up, lights working, straps tight. It takes 90 seconds, and it has caught mistakes more than once. And crossing those chains is not just a nice idea, it is the mistake I see done wrong most often. People run the chains straight, parallel, or leave them so long they drag on the ground. Crossed in an X and kept just short enough not to drag is the setup that can save your whole rig, and it costs you nothing but doing it right. Now let me pull back and tell you about the biggest attitude mistake of all, the one underneath every other mistake on this list. And then I am going to give you the thing I promised at the very start, the buried piece of knowledge that tied all of this together for me. The biggest mistake I made for 20 years was treating my trailer as an afterthought. I babied my boat and I ignored the 2,000 pounds of steel carrying it. That backwards thinking is exactly what wrecks trailers for good. We spend all our love and money on the boat. We wax the hull, we baby the engine, and then we bolt it to a trailer we never inspect, never grease, never rinse, and never really look at until it fails. The trailer is the one part of the whole setup that is between your family and the highway at 70 miles an hour, and it is the part we neglect the most. So here is the thing I found, the piece that changed how I think about all of it. When I started digging after my breakdown near Baxter, I went looking for the oldest, most trusted trailering guidance I could find, not the marketing, the real stuff. And I kept landing on the trailering guidance developed alongside groups like the National Marine Manufacturers Association and echoed in United States Coast Guard boating safety materials, guidance that has been refined since the recreational boating boom of the 1960s. And buried in that older guidance was a single idea I had never heard anyone at a ramp say out loud. The concept of matching, and I mean truly matching, all the numbers in your towing chain to the weakest link, and then knowing that weakest number by heart. Your hitch has a rating, your ball has a rating, your coupler has a rating, your trailer has a rating, your tires each have a rating, and your whole rig can only safely carry the smallest of those numbers, not the biggest. I had never checked. I assumed that because my truck could tow a lot, I was fine, but my ball mount was rated far lower than my truck, and I never knew it. The weakest link in my chain was a $15 part I had never looked at. That is the buried secret. It is not one clever trick. It is the discipline of finding your weakest rated component and treating that number as your absolute limit. Here is how you use it this weekend, and it costs nothing. Go out to your rig with a notepad. Write down the stamped rating on your hitch receiver, your ball mount, the ball itself, your coupler, and the trailer's capacity plate. Then write the load rating stamped on your tires. Find the smallest number in that whole list. That number, and not 1 pound more, is what your rig can safely carry. Then load your boat and gear so you stay well under it. When I did that, I finally understood why my trailer had been fighting me for years. I had been asking a 1,500-pound rated link to do 2,000 pounds of work. Once I fixed the weak link and stopped overloading it, everything else, the bearings, the tires, the sway, the frame stress, got easier. They were all symptoms of the same root problem I never knew to look for. That old guidance had been sitting in plain sight since before I was even towing, preserved by the people who care about this, ignored by the rest of us because it was not flashy and nobody was selling it. And now you have it too. So here is what I want you to walk away feeling. You do not have to keep replacing trailers, keep getting stranded, keep white-knuckling every windy highway. The knowledge that keeps a trailer alive for 20 years is old. It is simple, and it was never a secret to the people who bothered to look. It was just quietly forgotten by the rest of us in a world that would rather sell you a new trailer than teach you to save the one you have. If you are the kind of person who would rather understand your own equipment than pay someone to shrug at it, who trusts a garden hose and a torque wrench over an expensive service bill, then you already think like the folks who keep their trailers running for decades. This is your kind of knowledge. Now, I want to hear from you. Out of everything I covered, which one were you doing wrong? The hot hubs in the water, the cooler loaded too far back, or the weakest link you never checked? Tell me in the comments. I read them, and tell me where you are watching from, because I am always amazed how far these trips reach. Drop it below right now, even one line. And if you want to keep recovering this kind of practical, tested, old-school know-how, the kind that keeps your money in your pocket and your family safe, come along with the rest of us who are digging it back up one method at a time. Because next I am going to show you the forgotten way people used to store a boat over winter without paying a dime for shrink wrap, using a trick from the old boatyards that still works better than the modern version. You are not going to want to miss where that one came from. Before you go, one last thing. Inside the Old Ways Almanac, I pick up right where this video left off and walk you through the full routine step by step. If something's got you stumped, you can ask me directly. And a real person, me, answers you myself. You won't be alone either, folks like you are already inside. Just point your phone's camera at the code on the screen. Cancel anytime. Come join me.